Well, hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region, and welcome to this Free State Colorado interview. Today, I'm joined by Kevin Grantham, a former Canon City Councilman, former State Senate President, and currently County Commissioner for Fremont County, and is now running for Colorado State Treasurer in the 2026 election. Well, sir, I hope you are well, and thank you for joining me today.
Well, thanks for having me, Brandon. It's great to be on.
Well, the Colorado State Treasurer is, in my opinion, the most winnable seat for a Republican in 2026 at the state executive level. In 2022, the treasurer's race was the closest out of all the state level executive campaigns, and Colorado has an incredible opportunity for a pro-liberty victory here in 2026. But my first question is, which I think a lot of Coloradans are wondering also, what does the state treasurer do?
That is the million-dollar question. We it's kind of funny, Brandon, you asked that question because one of the first things I ask folks when I go to, speak to groups or to county party events or whatever is how many woke up this morning wondering what the state treasurer does. Um, I have yet to get a taker on that. Uh, it's just not the most well-known office. Uh, we don't necessarily know what they do. I usually say it's not the sexy office. That's why there's only one of me running for the Republican nomination for it, and there's 20 some running for governor. Um, it, there's vast differences, obviously, in those two seats and in those two offices, and so. Back to your question, what does the state treasurer do? Well, the state treasurer, his his biggest role, his or her biggest role, excuse me, is the management of the state investment portfolio. First of all, how that is invested, how do you get the best bang for the buck for the people of Colorado, and also, to be quite honest, not the greatest risk that a investment portfolio can be done in. That's not the job. This is supposed to be a safe investment strategy that does well for the people of Colorado in getting a return for their dollars. The um, the other aspect is they are the trustee, in essence, of the Unclaimed Property Trust Fund. The Great Colorado Payback, if you've heard of that, Brandon, I imagine a lot of your listeners have as well. That is their role. They manage that, all those funds that come in from leftover deposits from cable bills and utilities and phone companies, money that it's been abandoned and orphaned in savings accounts and things like that. It's still attached to the original owner's name, but it ultimately it falls under the purview of the treasurer to be managed and to find those people or their successors and heirs, as the case may be. There's actually some physical property that's actually it's still in the possession of the treasurer that belongs to people. It can be small things. It can be um, stock certificates. It can be gold bullion. It can be paintings, stuff that was lost in a safe deposit box that got orphaned and items were left there. So there's a lot of that sort of stuff that's under the purview of the treasurer to get back to the people. Um, One of the other major things that the treasurer does is they sit on the board for PARA, the Public Employee Retirement Association. So they are a significant member of that. They are very much a minority member because PARA is very much run by PARA retirees and the governor and his appointments. And so the treasurer has a bully pulpit, so to speak, to be able to call things on the carpet when necessary, when it comes to how PARA runs their retirement pension. So, those are the three main things that the treasurer does. And now that everybody is completely bored, those are just the things that I think are um, you're just not aware of what the treasurer does until you hear some of those things and they're important things, very important things. but the role is limited, but it's not insignificant, if that can be the way to put it.
Yeah, very interesting. I mean, do you mind going into a little bit about this, the investment portfolio for the state of Colorado? Because I'm sure that's something that people are pretty unfamiliar with, in terms of managing that risk. I mean, how big is this portfolio and kind of what's the purpose of it? I mean, I'm just curious there.
Well, even the treasurers on every county level have certain responsibilities for managing their county dollars, the tax dollars that come in. There's a certain amount of those dollars that comes in that gets put out into investment, safe investments, be it the national kind of well-known stock portfolios that you and I would have, or I would have at my age. Let's put it that way. Doing the safe investments, the stuff that's going to give you the slow and steady investment over the course of time. We're not going to put it in crypto, and things like that. That's not what you do with tax dollars. You do what is safe and profitable, but will give you the long haul best bang for the buck. This is just to give a little bit more money back to the people of Colorado, a little bit more money back into the coffers to be used wisely by a wise legislature and JBC. So um, that's the typical what happens with county dollars. That's what happens with state tax dollars is that gets invested back in. And that obviously all of those dollars, when you start talking about national dollars from all 50 states, when we talk about from all the counties across this state and across our nation, uh, you don't realize it, but those are dollars that go into our economy and back into the stock market that actually help us in our personal investments when it comes to our own 401ks and things like that. So all of these are an advantage to us as individuals and us as taxpayers as well. And so
Yeah, very interesting there. So, would it be fair to say that this investment portfolio that the state of Colorado has, some of those income from it comes back to like you said, to the Joint Budget Committee to make decisions with the JBC, goes back into the state budget, and then the state can kind of use some of that investment income to plan ahead or to pay for some of the programs. Is that accurate?
it is. I mean, it goes back into the overall general fund for them to be able to, yeah, just another revenue line in the state budget, going right along with state sales tax and right along with all the other forms of revenue that the state has and income tax, et cetera. And so, yes, goes right back into the pot for them to be able to make those decisions on what they're going to spend the money on this time.
Man, it's so interesting, I think, too, in terms of the financial stability of Colorado, because we've heard over these past year and going into the near future that seems perpetually the state government is running out of money because our legislators are spending more than is coming in. But it seems to me that a fiscally responsible state government would say, hey, well, let's plan for the future. Let's put more money into these investments. Let's get this investment profile going or portfolio going so that eventually maybe we could get to the point where, hey, like a retiree or somebody out there who's been a very smart investor their whole lives. I mean, would it even be possible for if the state government wasn't restrained, which I know is an impossibility, don't get me wrong. But if we had a strong enough investment portfolio with this long-term kind of planning, you could almost run the state government off of, if it was small enough, of course, that caveat, but you can almost run the state government off the income from investments. I mean, is that something that kind of is at least even thought about in our discussions about the state budget?
Well, certainly in groups that you and I certainly revolve in, such discussions happen. But as you said, if the government was small enough, things like that could happen. But what we have right now is a government that's grown exponentially over the last 7 years. Uh, we it's hard to really even fathom just how big our state budget has gotten over the course of this current administration. We did what we could back when we had majorities back in 11 and 12 in the House, in 14 and 15 and 16, or 15 and 16, and then 17 and 18 under my presidency those last 2 years, doing what we could to slow that growth, not allowing these big expansive growths in government. We go back to the Medicaid expansions back in '09, 10, that era. And then we look over the last 7 years and the creation of new departments, the continued expansion of Medicaid that has really lent most of this. I wouldn't even call it a deficit, Brandon, because they're the ones that have been digging the hole with and using a bigger and bigger shovel every year, and then complaining that they can't see the sky. Um, it's remarkable to me, where we're at right now, that we're still hearing the mantra, well, we're another $400 million in the hole. Well, last year, $1.2 million in the hole. Well, in those cases and in this coming year, you will still see an increase in state government. You'll still see an increase in the state budget. And hasn't been a real hole that has to be filled. What is happening is they're just not being able to increase the government as much as they want. And so the hole is a lack of ability to increase it as big as they originally intended. And so we have to get fiscal responsibility back in play here. That's the bottom line for all that talking. We have to be able to uh, have some fiduciary responsibility on the state level. We and for the treasurer's part and their role in all that, as limited as it might be, we still have to bring balance to government. We have to have an alternate voice in that building that can call out some of these things, that comes at it from a point of experience, that comes at it from the experience of fiduciary responsibility and fiscal responsibility that I have. And I think this is the year. You mentioned it. We have an opportunity in this race. Funny thing, Brandon, my most likely potential opponent even agrees with you that if there is a seat that the Democrats could lose in this state, it is this one. And so we have an opportunity here. It was the closest one in 2022. We have to flip 6% of the vote, get some of those unaffiliateds to switch, and we're already seeing some of that. There's actually polling that I've heard of that, not necessarily for my race, but generally, that people are a little fed up with this move towards more and more government in the state of Colorado, and they're getting a little tired of it. And I think this is the year that we're going to see some change here in the state.
Well, it's very exciting, sir, definitely. And I think, somebody with your experience, as you said, and you've seen it all, right? I mean, you've seen every level from being on the city council in Canon City to being a county commissioner for Fremont County. And then, of course, in our state government, where you really got to see how the whole budget process works with the Joint Budget Committee, being the Senate president. I mean, you definitely have the experience to really speak to the state budget, to understand how it all works. And for you to go in there, I mean, you could hit the ground running, I think, day one and really say, hey, listen, from the state treasurer's perspective, here's what we can do to maybe improve affordability, to make our state government more fiscally solvent or fiscally responsible at the very least,
Right.
and have that voice. I think that's a really powerful thing, and I think people should be very excited about your campaign.
I hope so. I think they should be. I think this is, even though it's one of those that goes under the radar every 4 years, it is a great opportunity for us. It's an important office that Republicans historically have held, because typically Republicans are the ones that are viewed as the fiscal hawks, right? These last 8 years obviously have been the exception to that. One thing of note that your listeners and your viewers should be aware of when it comes to the state treasurer's office, folks that are listening to this and watching this probably remember Walker Stapleton. He was our state treasurer from 2011 to 2018 and did a fantastic job. Unsuccessfully ran for governor in 2018, unfortunately. But when he took office back in 2011, he came in with 31 employees. That was the office given to him, 31 employees. In 8 years, he went from 31 to 32 employees. Now, that's fiscal restraint, that's fiscal responsibility, that's managing an office and managing your staff. He did a great job. Since 2018, in 7 years, the current state treasurer has taken that office from 32 employees to 70 employees. That's an increase of 118% in 7 years in that office. That is the poster child for unrestrained bloat in government. And so that's another thing that we're going to have to get back under control. Looking at what is actually needed to perform the functions of that office because it is a limited function office. And so what is actually needed there staff-wise in order to run those things? And I think Walker had it right, and I'm pretty sure our current state treasurer does not.
Oh, I mean, that's such a great example there of kind of how the changes we've seen here in Colorado over the last 8 years. Anybody who's worked at a business or managed a company or owned a small business, you know that full-time employees are really your biggest cost, right? That's your biggest source of overhead, especially now in Colorado where you have all these family leave stuff and everything else you have to pay for, all the extra paperwork there at the very least. So yeah, I mean, it's so clear and such a perfect example there. I thought that was really interesting. But I wanted to touch on this because you brought up unaffiliated voters earlier. And really, as we know in Colorado, unaffiliated voters really determine many of these races, right? They're going to decide who's going to be elected for the most part. And it seems or affordability, right? Affordability is the number one word. It's the biggest issue that Coloradans are facing. Half the state is thinking about leaving the state because it's too expensive. A poll showed last year, and it's just people are struggling to make ends meet. So I mean, being a voice for this fiscal restraint, but is there anything else that the state treasurer can do to help make Colorado more affordable?
Well, we know we have a bully pulpit in the treasurer's office. Our current treasurer does not need a bully pulpit because there's no one to argue against in the governor's mansion or in the legislature. But the state treasurer does have a bully pulpit from the fiscal responsible side and is able to call out many of these things that are not advantageous for the consumer in Colorado, not advantageous for the taxpayer in Colorado, and that's what they should be doing. And being that voice, that overall larger voice that the taxpayer and the citizen in Colorado can have. When it comes to affordability, obviously there's many things that the treasurer can be the voice for when it comes to regulatory change on the state level. We're From my perspective as a Fremont County Commissioner and formerly as a city councilman, and even my time in the legislature, the uh, we have to be aware of the kind of mandates that are being filtered down from the state into local governments, the things that are being required of people at every level. But my mind is kind of in the housing market right now when it comes to all the requirements being put on builders, all the requirements being put on local governments, and now the state is talking about taking away some of our land use authority at local government level. Uh, that only ties things up. That only slows things down. That only makes things more expensive, and it does us no favors. It does people no favors. This is already a state that is cruising to the bottom of affordability in this nation. Um, be it eggs at the store, or be it trying to get your first time, being a first time home buyer. Kids are fleeing the state because they can't afford to live here anymore. Or kids are living at home still with their kids. Um, in order to try to survive because you can't afford your own house anymore. I think the regulatory atmosphere and the attitude from the state capital needs to change in order to make that a reality. Otherwise, we are going to continue to see this skyrocketing costs for new homes, starter homes, getting actual attainable and affordable housing. Um, the, the current administration and legislature are not serious about that as long as they continue to throw up roadblocks through their regulatory schemes and their green energy agenda.
Yeah, well said, sir. I completely agree with you there. And talking to you today, it really makes me think that your campaign might be the one of the most, maybe even the most important campaign here in 2026 that people aren't talking about for sure. Because, think about it this way for viewers out there, we'd love to see a Republican governor, obviously. We'd love to see all these other races go, but say they don't, just say the math isn't there, maybe it just doesn't work out. But to have a Republican state treasurer, to have somebody who can talk the talk, who's walked the walk previously, somebody with that experience and that level of understanding to get in there. If we get one Republican elected this year and it's you, sir, as the state treasurer, I mean, the power there to be able to push back against whoever that Democrat governor is or the Democrat legislature or whoever, and to get in the media and to make those statements and to really be out there saying, this is wrong. You are making Colorado more expensive. You're doing this and that. I mean, that could be an incredible thing for Colorado that sure, maybe we don't win the whole basket of eggs this year, but 2 years down the line, 4 years down the line, it can make a huge impact and really move Colorado in the right direction. So I think that's something that people should really be excited about, and maybe people who are less optimistic about some of our other chances in the state should see the state treasurer's race in your campaign as just an incredible opportunity. And like you said, maybe it's under the radar, and maybe it's under the radar for some of these other people too that aren't paying attention, and maybe we get you in there, and I mean it'd be a great thing.
Well, I certainly hope that your lips to God's ears, that we are able to pull this off. Nothing about this is easy. There's no givens about it, that's for sure. Any notion that Colorado is a quasi purple kind of state is false. We are a blue state, but that doesn't mean that we can't win in the certain circumstances. And I think part of that electorate is moving in our direction. And I'm seeing it, I'm hearing it on one-on-one conversations, I'm hearing it in larger conversations, some polling. But that narrow window of unaffiliated voters that actually does swing one direction or the other. Um, they are getting fed up, not just on the state level, but on the national level with what they're seeing. New York City just elected a self-proclaimed Muslim Democratic Socialist, who, what was the phrase, getting away from the rugged individualism to I can't remember.
The warmth of collectivism.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, the warm collectivism. Um, Boy, you know how that's worked out so well over the last 100 years in every situation, right? We see a country in South America right now that's in the news an awful lot. That um, it was one of the richest countries in the world. I just saw the comparison between Venezuela and Poland. Back when Poland was one of the worst off countries in the world back 40 years ago or so, 50 years ago, under communism, Venezuela was one of the richest. They switched their economics virtually at the same time in the 90s, early 2000s. And Poland now actually has an economy and a GDP that's larger than Japan, and it is booming. In Venezuela, meanwhile, shelves are empty. People can't find work. People are fleeing in mass. That is what socialism and communism does. And now we're seeing that experiment being ready to play out right here within our own borders in one of the largest cities in the nation. And so I fear for our country. I fear that many in our majority here in this state are of the same political bent, and we need to take things back quickly, and we need to do it now. So,
Yes, 100%. Well said. Couldn't agree with you more. As we kind of wrap things up here, I just love to kind of last question I have for you. You were a state Senate president, as you mentioned earlier, at a time when Republicans controlled the state Senate, obviously, because you're a Republican. But I'm interested in your perspective on how the legislature has changed since that time. I mean, you kind of touched on it a little bit with a lot of these seemingly, and maybe not seemingly, but absolutely more far left people who are card carrying members of the Democratic Socialists of America who are embracing these policies. I mean, anything else you can speak to in terms of just the changes since you were down there at the Capitol compared to now?
probably one of the biggest changes when I look at the other party in particular, um, there was back in our day, back in the day, um, when President Cadman was my predecessor, and then my time, and even back when Frank McNulty was Speaker back in 11 and 12, back in those days, uh, as the power lever as the power levers, transferred from one party to the other, what we typically saw was some restraint on the other side. They didn't want to go too far. They thought the same way that this group does today over the last 7 years. They believed the same things for the most part. But what they had that this current group does not have is experience and restraint. And they would hold back on some of their more lofty ideals on the left because they didn't want to scare people. This group does not care about that. This group will do anything and everything that they read in their playbooks coming straight down from the most left-leaning organizations in this country, if not across the world. And that's a little bit frightening. And I think that's kind of what's frightening the unaffiliated voters in this state and in other states, where we have these folks that are not afraid to, um, like I said, pull every leftist lever that they have. And they are actually doing it. And so we need to make those changes quickly and soon. The, this matters, Brandon, for our families. This matters for my kids, my grandkids. I know people, and I bet you know people that are fleeing this state on our side, going to states that are more friendly. There are people fleeing other states coming to Colorado still, which is odd. Um, and people that would be on our side typically, fleeing places like California. But we have our own friends fleeing from here. Um, I want to save our state for my kids and grandkids. I want them to have the same kind of Colorado I grew up in. And so that is my goal. I care about this state. I care about the future for the next generation, my kids and grandkids, their kids and grandkids. And our current outlook is not favorable, and I want to change that.
Wonderful, sir. We'll wish you all the best for sure on your campaign. Give you the last word here. Any other final thoughts? Anything else people can maybe, if they want to support your campaign, donate, volunteer? And I'll have the links, of course, at Free State Colorado, but anything you want to speak to about that?
All of those things are findable at kevingrantham.com. I would certainly appreciate your donations. Again, because this is an under the radar kind of race, it doesn't make it any less expensive to advertise and to get around the state, to do a bare bones kind of campaign because it's an under the radar. But I would love to have your support, your financial support, your delegate support, your volunteer support. You can do all that at kevingrantham.com. Spread the word, be a delegate, and give, give, give. Those are the three things.
Wonderful. Definitely encourage that and echo that sentiment. So I appreciate you taking the time, sir. Really appreciate it. Keep us up to date. If there's any news on the campaign or any other issues that people should be aware of, please let us know.
Will do. Thank you, Brandon. Really appreciate it.
All right. Take care, sir.
Take care.